Welcome back to Positive Talk Radio. Our goal is simple, to explore evolving ideas one conversation at a time. So come on over into our world. I know you'll like it, because on today's show, we have an awesome author, speaker, advocate, and athlete. And that's quite a combination to have all at the same time. And we're going to get into that in just a minute, but I've got to talk to my friend Eric first. See, 18 years ago when I was doing Positive Talk Radio, I gave him the job of monitoring and taking care of the weather. And so I have to ask him, Eric, why in the world is it snowing?
Because it's cold. Next question.
Yeah, well, you know, part of my team has not been able to be part of my team today because they're over at Finn Hill and they haven't had power since 10 o'clock last night.
Wow. Well, let's hope that gets fixed quickly. Yeah, we are in the middle of a bit of a winter storm at the moment. So we're seeing mix of snow and rain and more snow and more rain.
Do they have, I haven't been paying attention to the weather. Have they been, and this is for all the listeners, for everybody that's driving around out there, have they given us an idea of how much snow or how long this is going to last?
Well, because it's going to fluctuate between rain and snow, you know, we may get a couple inches, but that's going to disappear anytime it warms up to turn into rain, and then we'll get a couple more inches and then back to the rain thing. So it doesn't look too much like it's going to be accumulating, but definitely looks like it's slick conditions for sure.
But it's not going to get into the 20s overnight, so it's not going to freeze overnight.
It is going to get into the 20s overnight. We're going to see lows around 23, and so it's going to be slick out there. But during the days, we're going to see more rain mixed in with that, so probably not a lot of accumulation.
So the advice there is if you have to get up and go to work early in the morning,
be careful.
Be careful because there's going to be ice out there.
Most likely.
Yes, indeed. So, well, now that we got that cleared up, it's, you know, we don't get that much snow here. And so everybody loses their mind when when that happens. And we just have to be really careful. So, Eric, thank you so much. And Randi-Lee Bowslaugh is our guest, and she is right there. And Randy, how are you today?
I'm good, and I'm glad to hear that you have the snow and I don't.
Well, you're in Ontario, aren't you?
I am.
You're supposed to have snow now.
No, thank you. We had a little bit of snow on the weekend, but it's all since gone because it warmed up again.
Oh, well, good. Well, could you fix it here for us? Because we lose our mind.
No, because then it might come back to me, and you know I like you and all, but you can keep it.
You don't like us that much, so
no.
I understand completely. So I got we've talked before. You've been on the show before, and but I got to tell you, I've been reading your bio, and not only are you an author, you are passionate about helping others. You're a speaker. You're an advocate. I had no idea that you were, and I don't know if you still are, a world-class athlete.
Not currently. My body this year was like, no, actually, I don't think you're gonna be able to do that. But yeah, I was for a while there.
And did you get to hear the Canadian national anthem at the World Kickboxing Tournament?
I think so.
Because you came in second.
Well, that was the Pan Americans that it came in second, but I'm trying to remember now. So long ago in my memory. It was 2016. And I mean, and the adrenaline, all the excitement, kind of like everything blurs together. But I'm going to go with, yeah, I think so.
What's it like being, see, I was in my youth, I attempted to be a boxer.
Oh.
What's it like being a kickboxer?
Oh, it's so much fun, especially kicking them in the head. That's my favorite thing to do. And whenever we would do drills that were like just straight boxing, I'd be like, I don't know what to do right now. I can't. And I'd go to kick them like, well, I can't do that right now because we're just doing boxing. And yeah, I need to kick things.
So now, in order to kick somebody in the head, you have to be able to kick pretty high, I would think.
Yeah.
So what got you involved in kickboxing? Was it that you were mad at your older brother or something?
No, actually, so we put our kid in not in kickboxing. We put our kid in jiu-jitsu when he was 5. He's 16 now. So when he was 5, we put him into into jiu-jitsu. While he was in class, there was an adult cardio kickbox class going on. And I look over and I'd be like, those girls have really nice butts. I want to have a really nice butt. And so I joined the class. They actually got it from running, not from kickboxing, but um, so I joined the class. It was a lot of fun. So then I moved from the fitness class to the actual real class. And then the rest is history. I started doing it, loving it, hitting people. It's great.
Well, somebody had to say at one point, young lady, you've got a lot of talent for this. Who was that guy or gal?
That would be my coach, Roger. He said it the one day. He goes, you learn so quickly. Like most people, it takes they go. It's a very slow progress. He goes, but you like took off. So it's like, yeah, okay.
What's it like going to the Pan America Games and going into the stadium when everybody's coming in there and they've got opening ceremonies and closing ceremonies? Long.
I don't know. People might be expecting a different answer, but it's just like it's long and a little tedious because you're just standing there and can't do anything. So it's a little boring. And I just want to like get out and go see and do things.
Where were the Pan American Games held?
Mexico. Cancun.
In where?
Cancun.
Oh, a lousy place to go visit. I mean, there's lots of stuff to do in Cancun.
Right? I know. And I'm sitting here going, okay, finish talking so I can get in the pool. Come on.
So it must have been a great challenge for you, but also a lot of fun.
Oh, it's so much fun.
And congratulations on that, by the way. I've talked to a lot of people and I've met just a few really great athletes, and it takes being a great athlete to be able to do what you do and come in seconds and all of that. So congratulations. I think that's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah, it was so much fun, and perhaps one day I'll do it again. We just have to wait for the body to decide to want to.
I don't mean to put this impolitely, but is there a senior division?
There is actually. I'm not quite old enough for that yet. So that's 40 and over. Yeah.
So
they call it veteran.
Okay. So you have 40-year-old women kicking each other in the head.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. So some of them are amazing. I mean, age really doesn't stop you. And now they do what in the veteran division. So normally the divisions are 3 rounds of, depending what style you fight in, 1.5 to 2 minutes. The veterans, though, I'm trying to remember now. It's always 1.5 minutes, I think, and I feel like it was 2 rounds. Yeah, it's been a while since I reviewed the rules.
Well, and to be fair, they may have changed in that.
Exactly.
Time.
Exactly.
So you don't know if you decide to get back into it, you'll need to come back on the show, because when I was 20, I went to see the movie Rocky and said, "Ooh, I think I'll do that."
Yeah.
And I went to the professional gym in downtown Seattle. It's no longer there. It's called Eagles Gym on 7th and Union. And I met a professional boxing trainer, and he said this to me: "I can make you the champion of the world." If somebody ever walks up to you and says, "I can make you champion of the world," don't listen to him. Run.
All I heard was, "Please give me all your money."
Exactly. So he took me to Monroe Reformatory, and he said, "Oh, don't worry, that we are all going to be matched up with people our own skill level."
Heard that before.
Hospital, but that's a story for. I'll have to tell that story completely one time. But
yeah,
it was. I broke my cheek and had to go have surgery and all that kind of good stuff. So,
oh, ouch.
Fortunately for me, that was the end of my boxing career because now I would be, if I had boxed like a long time and became a champion, I would be behind the microphone going something like this. So, I don't know what you say. Have a nice day, something like that. So I'm
Yeah.
glad
No,
I
I
still have
like
my
this
voice.
conversation better.
I do too. And let's get into it a little bit because not only are do you like people saying that she's a world-class athlete?
Um, Sometimes it depends on my mood. So right now, yes. Yes, I do.
That's very nice. But you're also an author
Yes.
and you've written in several different genres based upon your life experience and the things that have gone on with you. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes.
And so the first one that you wrote in 2017 was about mental health awareness. It
Yep.
was called Thoughts of a Wanderer. Where did the name come from?
Um, I thought of it as a teenager, actually, like years before I actually published the book. And I just knew one day I was gonna make a book and it was gonna be called Thoughts of a Wanderer. No idea how I came up with it because it's like 20 years ago, but it stuck with me. So when I did finally go to publish a book, I was like, I already got a name. Perfect.
Very nice. Now it's about mental health awareness. What does it comprise? What does it talk about?
So it's a collection of poetry. And it's all of the poems that I had written as a teenager and some of the darkest times. And then I also did like a little beginning chapter and end chapter to kind of set the reader up to understand where these poems are coming from, and then at the end kind of be like, okay, so as dark as they are, let's remember that things can be better and good, that you don't have to end it all. And I've been thinking about re-releasing it, so I want to do some updates and edits because I mean 2017 I was still a very fresh author. I've since learned lots, and I have other ideas to put into that one, and just kind of refresh it.
Well, it's kind of cool because it is. Now, I don't know if I would call it an autobiography, but it is kind of based upon your life experiences, right?
Yeah, I definitely have another book that would be more like an autobiography than that one because it is more poetry. But like I said, the very first section of it, I share just a smidge of my life story just to kind of set the stage.
But now that you've had more of a life story, that you can go revisit that book because your experience has led you to other things
Exactly.
and growth.
Yes, exactly.
And that's what's really exciting and really cool about life
Yes.
is that the longer you go, and I now am speaking from experience, mind you, but the longer you go, the more fun you can have and the more experiences you get. And then you get to the point where it's like, oh no, I had that in when I was 46. I don't need that again. And so you get
Yep.
a little bit smarter over time.
Yes, exactly. Been there, done that, not going back.
Don't need that anymore. I've had that and I would like to go do something else now. Thank you very much. And then the next book you wrote, I wanted to talk about this one a little bit because I think it's a mother's truth
Yes.
and I want to talk about that because I just found out a month or so ago that my granddaughter is quote unquote on the spectrum,
Okay.
which means that I have no earthly idea what any of that means.
You know what? At least you can admit it.
Exactly. And I've done a little bit of research, but I don't know what being on the spectrum means for a 4-year-old child.
Yep.
I know how it affects the mom and dad because the child is not behaving as a normal, whatever normal is,
Yeah.
4-year-old child. And so they've got present unique challenges. I don't really know what that holds for them now or in the future. And they even tell me that that there are some kids that are autistic in nature now that can grow out of it. I have no idea whether any of that's true.
You don't grow out of it. It's with you forever, but you develop coping strategies to help you fit into societal standards. So it's more like when people talk about that, like growing out of it, like I said, you gain different coping strategies to then mask when you need to. So I actually was diagnosed finally last year myself. And I'm like, oh, my whole life makes sense. Yay. But like we are holding a very important conversation. And in a sense, I'm masking because my voice isn't as bouncy as it is sometimes when I'm just kind of letting everything go. Now, you can see me, nobody else can see me, and I'm fidgeting, I'm all over the place, I'm making faces. So I mean, it's always there, but you develop coping strategies. And it's really like you said, she's 4, so she has a great chance of getting these skills at an early age, because the earlier that you can help them, the better it will be for them to learn. Because as kids age, it's you can't teach an old dog new tricks, right? So it's the same thing with people. The younger that you can help somebody, the better it is. Just like kids who are bilingual from birth, if they speak 2 languages in the home, it's a lot easier for the kids than when you're an adult trying to learn that second language.
And I want to bring it up and talk about it quite a little bit because, and I don't know if everybody knows this, but years ago, like 20 years ago, they were saying that 1 out of 80 kids, 1 out of 90 kids was going to be on the spectrum, was autistic in some manner or form. And through the years, the last 20 years or so, that number has kept on coming down.
Yes.
So it was now like 1 in 60, and then 1 in 40, and now 1 in 20, and now it's down to like 1 in 8 or 9. Have you been keeping up with those stats? Is any of that true?
I don't know that, but the stats right now, last time I checked was a few years ago, and it was like 1 in 64 or something, Canada stats, which are very similar to the US stats. Now, there's oodles of factors, and I'm not a doctor, but from what I do know, when autism was first discovered, way back when, it was discovered in boys. It was something boys had. And for the longest time, only boys were like researched on. That's not the word I'm looking for, but they were the only ones that they had to base any of the diagnostical criteria on. And so when girls would start to present, they'd be like, oh, no, you're not presenting because you're a girl. No. Right. And so I think that now that people are more aware of the actual symptoms and what to look for, a lot more girls are now being diagnosed. So the numbers come down simply because, and I shouldn't say simply because, but one of the reasons is because now girls are also being diagnosed at a higher rate than they ever were before, because girls don't present the same way as boys.
And boys, having had 2 of them living in my house for, their formative years, boys are a lot more difficult at the early age. They don't listen as much. They get out of whack, and they really can lose their mind. That's what I might call it anyway, and stuff. But girls are a little bit quieter at the younger ages, and then through their teenage years. At least that was my experience.
It's so true. And girls are often diagnosed later as well. Like my kid was diagnosed at the age of 8, because when me and my husband said there's something wrong, it was no, they're just a quiet kid, it's fine. Yeah, they're a quiet kid, but they're quiet because they are not being socially engaged to an appropriate developmental level as everyone else, and you're just saying that they're just a quiet kid. No, they are acting 3 years younger than they should be. So it does take a lot, and it's very hard to diagnose, again, because it is developmental. There's no blood test to figure it out. You really just have to go to the psychologist or psychiatrist to talk to them about all of your past experiences, how your interactions are in different situations, to really see, is this an anxiety thing where, you know, you're at school, so you're anxious, so you're acting too quiet, or is it actually autism and you are quiet in all of these situations, but you're quiet to the point that even if somebody says your name, you're not paying attention. Like, it doesn't even phase you. That's how my kid got diagnosed. It was, people would be like, "Hey, Lev, what's up?" Like right in front of his face. And it was like not even there. No clue somebody was talking to him.
So if girls who obviously turned into young women and then women were not diagnosed with autism, there are people wandering around who have autism that nobody has ever diagnosed. So when they are presenting as you say, then they think it's something else, or do they think they're just being weird, or does somebody give them antipsychotic, some drugs to calm them down and that kind of stuff because nobody diagnosed them?
A little bit of yes to all of those. It really depends on which doctor this person ends up going and talking to, because a lot of doctors don't understand autism. It's not their specialty, especially like just a general practitioner, like a family doctor. They would rather probably hit you up with some antidepressants or antipsychotic than to really dig deep into why you're doing what you're doing. And as adults, we've gone through life. So we've picked up different skills along the way, whether they're good or bad, that's to be seen, but we've picked up different skills and strategies, especially for those of us who went to higher education, right? If you went to college or university, you've picked up enough skills to help you manage going through those, or getting a job or doing an interview. So you're managing enough that sometimes a doctor will be like, "You're fine. You're blowing this out of proportion," even though I go, "It takes me 2 weeks to make a phone call because I forget that I need to make a phone call. Even if it's written down on this piece of paper that's in front of my face, I'll forget what I'm doing." And just little things like that it's an accumulation of many factors, but yeah.
So I guess the long story short here would be, if you feel like you have got some issues, that go to somebody that is able to talk to you and diagnose you, so that you can get to the bottom of it. Because if you're diagnosed incorrectly, you can't get to the bottom of what's really going on, can you?
No, you can't. So yeah, if you there's a bunch of different really good like self-assessments online. They obviously aren't going to tell you 100%, but it's kind of a nice starting point so that you can go to the doctor and say, "Hey, look, I think that I fit into the autism spectrum. Can you refer me to somebody who knows about it?"
So you said the word spectrum again, and my son used that to me. She's on the spectrum, and I still have no earthly idea what that means. How broad is the spectrum?
Super duper broad. So
good.
I love this question, actually. So autism spectrum, it's an umbrella of various developmental levels. And so Asperger's used to have its own category. It is now part of the autism spectrum. What is it? PTSD? Nope. It's another developmental one. I can't remember the exact acronym. But it doesn't quite fit autism, but it's a developmental, and then it is now falling under the umbrella of autism spectrum. And then when you look at spectrum, a lot of people, and I get this question a lot, are you low or high functioning? Well, it's not cut and dry like that. So you have to think of it more as various scales. So your communication skills for both verbal and nonverbal, two separate scales, really, you can be low or high or in the middle, right? Your social skills can be low, high, in the middle, whatever. Your basically any executive functions, that could be planning, organization, ability to make phone calls, how to interact with people. All of these need to be looked at on their own merit, not as one big low or high. each one separately. So it always used to, well, it still bugs me, but I can now better articulate what I'm trying to say when people say, hey, lower high functioning. And I go, let's stop right there because we're not going to use those labels because especially for my kid, it's, at 16 now, he's learned a lot more things. He's still, he's 16, but sometimes I'm like, you're still 10. I love you though. But I used to get a lot of, well, are they low or high? And I'd say, well, he has really high verbal communication skills. He will chat your ear off. He's a little lower, though, on the processing of what you're going to say back to him. And then he's a little lower on task completion. So don't give him more than 2 things at a time because he's not going to remember the 3rd, 4th thing.
Gotcha. Funny.
So,
I just thought that was life. I thought we all have our skills and we all have things we don't do well. And how many times have you walked out of your house without your keys in your pocket and can't remember where in the world did you put your keys?
Exactly. And that's why I'm saying, like, there's so many different components that you have to look at, which is why if you suspect that you might have it or your kid might have it, you have to speak to somebody who is aware of what autism really is, because it can look so much like ADHD, so much like just being forgetful, so much like all of these other things, depression, anxiety. But so you really have to get down to the nitty gritties of every little detail in order to get a true diagnosis.
Well, we're going to talk more about that book and also subsequent books and also the things that you do in life that you're becoming an advocate, and you put that on your website. You're an advocate for people who need help with different things. And you by the way, you are just a dynamically lovely person. I wish people could see your smile and who you are. You're just terrific. But we need to take a break, and we're going to, by the way, while we're taking that break, if you want to go to her website, you can, which is rbwriting.ca, because she's, like A in Canada kind of thing, and
I do not sound like that.
No, she doesn't sound like that at all. But but if you want to go to rbwriting.ca, you can find out all about her books. You can work with her. She does speaking. She's a writing coach, which, by the way, I sorely need a writing coach. But we'll talk about that another time. But in any event, you're listening to Positive Talk Radio, and we will be right back right after these. Just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere, really, honestly. We got lots left to do. Hey there. I'm excited that you're listening right now, and if you like what we're doing here, you're going to love PositiveTalkRadio.net. On PositiveTalkRadio.net, each show, which is recorded live, is packed with positive information, with real people discussing real issues and positive solutions that can work for everyone. I hope that you'll join us on PositiveTalkRadio.net and listen to all 340 plus shows. I think it's worth your time. But then, that's just me. That's PositiveTalkRadio.net, your home for great progressive, positive podcasts.
When you want to say more than words communicate, you can with flowers. Your custom boutique floral studio in Bothell, Washington is anaturaldesign.com, connecting you to nature through the language of flowers. Where your people are is where our flowers are beautiful. Your success is our goal. Now through New Year's Eve, here's your exclusive bonus for being our appreciated listener. Type in promo code Positive Talk Radio at checkout to receive $20 off your order. Our gift to you for being here with us today. anaturaldesign.com.
And welcome back to Positive Talk Radio, everybody. It is Wednesday afternoon. It's snowing, so I want everybody to take care of themselves and make sure that you are obeying the speed limit and all that kind of good stuff, and take care and so that you don't get into an accident. We are talking with a great young lady. Her name is Randi-Lee, and I'm going to have you pronounce your last name to make sure, because I think I got it right at the beginning.
You did, Bowslaugh.
Oh, very good, Bowslaugh. And she is got a great website that I want you to go to, which is rbwriting.ca. She does all kinds of things, including your background is including recovery work. You were a postgraduate work at a Native Friendship Center. You pursued an education in psychology, and you're a world-class kickboxer. That's quite a package you got put together there.
Thank you.
And you're a mother too, right?
Yes, and a grandma.
No way.
Yes, he just turned 3.
How old is your son?
My stepdaughter is 18.
Oh,
she's about to be 19. Yeah.
Oh, very nice. Well, how is the grandchild? Is she doing well, or he?
He is doing so well. He's potty trained now. He talks your ear off, and grandma is his favorite person.
Isn't it fun when you get to be a grandparent of these little children, and before they find out the real you, they think that you walk on water and stuff. And
yeah, exactly. Grandma, I want this. Okay. You can have whatever you want.
You're so adorable. I just love you. And and you've written a couple of books. You got another book coming out?
I do. I was hoping you would ask.
Of course.
So it's actually on pre-order right now on Amazon. You can get a pre-order of the ebook. And it releases May 20th of next year. It's called Goodbye Too Soon. And it's a story about my brother. He died. It'll be 2 years ago on May 20th. That's why it's being released that day. And so he died from a drug overdose. He was addicted to drugs for most of his life. And so it's his story. It's my story. It's written for family members, really all about how to forgive yourself, forgive the person with the addiction, because sometimes we have to put boundaries into place and just love them from a distance, which can be very difficult, especially if that person passes away before we're able to really have a good relationship. So there's some research in there. I add some research. I add some of the story, planning the funeral, and the phone call. The very first chapter is about the phone call I get, and then I ended up having to tell my mom what happened. So that was a doozy. And so far the feedback is that you need a box of tissues when you go to read it.
We talked about this book last time, and I want to talk about that some more because you are doing a lot for people, and especially in the United States, because drug addiction and overdose in this country right now is beyond belief.
Same in Canada. Yeah.
Is it as bad in Canada?
It's pretty bad. Yeah.
I was told that 100,000 people in 2021 died of a drug overdose.
Sounds about right. I do actually have the statistics. I put them in the book. I don't remember off the top of my head, but there are in the book.
It's incredible that this, I would think, would be something that would be on the news every day, because that's more people than die in car accidents. It's more people that die of heart attacks. It's young people. Yeah, a lot of them.
But if they started talking about it more, then they'd have to actually realize there's a problem that has to be dealt with and then deal with it. And that's crazy talk. Nobody wants to do that.
Well, but please, so many people are dying, and it has to. We can't hide from it anymore, and especially with fentanyl.
That is what did him in, actually. Yeah.
Is that what did him in?
Yeah.
And do you mind sharing a little bit about that story that might help somebody?
Yeah, for sure. What part do you want to know? Because it could be a long one.
Well, because he started out, what was his drug of choice to start? Was it beer and wine and pot?
So I'm not 100% sure, because I was the younger sister. So he was 4 years older than me. Now he's only 3 years older than me. I joke because I still care. Yes. And so I remember the first time I can remember seeing him do drugs. we lived still in the townhouse. So he was probably maybe 14 or 15. So I was like 10 or 11. And I walked into the kitchen and he had these two hot knives and something between them, and there was smoke coming out. And I had no idea what it was. I was still young, and he was offering me drugs. And I was like, no, what? And then I walked away. And so that was my first kind of clear memory. So I don't know what he did prior to that, because I mean that seems like a hard drug of choice at 15. So from there, he was in and out of jail a bunch, which it was called juvenile detention because it was like the youth jail. And I do talk about that a lot in the book, because in Canada, when he was going through the system, it was called the Young Offenders Act. But in 2002, they changed the law to be the Youth Criminal Justice Act. And there's quite a significant difference in how they implement the justice system based on those two acts. So I kind of give an overview of the two, and how the justice system has come a long way, because the new act focuses more on rehabilitation and helping the youth, as opposed to when my brother was in there, that was more about punishment and kind of teaching them, if you lie and we can't prove it, well, then you'll get off the hook, instead of now where it's like, own up to it and then we can help you. So big differences.
It really is. Hopefully that we are learning that punishment for an addiction, which is a disease, is not appropriate in most cases. Now, what they do because of their addiction, i.e. stealing, things like that, they may have to pay a price for that. But they're also not getting the... I interviewed a gentleman 2 weeks ago. He was hard on drugs. He'd lost his wife, had lost his family, lost everything, and he was stealing stuff to get by. And then he committed an armed robbery, and he got caught. And so he went to prison, or he went to the jail, and he had been on drugs for a long time. So there was huge withdrawal symptoms that he was going through. And so he went to the nurse, and she said, "Look, I've been using for a long time, and now obviously here I can't, and I got to get clean and sober, but this is painful and it hurts." And she said, "Well, we like to treat you like a rocket ship. You go down hard and fast." So they didn't give him anything to help him. "Would you like some Tylenol? Maybe that'll help." So, and nor did he get any counseling so he went through that, which was a horrible experience. Now, some people would say, "Well, he deserved to go through that." Mm-hmm. But it can really hurt you, and sometimes it can kill you. So yes. It's important that we as a culture, in my humble way of thinking, I think it's important for us to take care of our kids and to help them.
Right. Exactly. And I say this in the book. My brother didn't wake up every morning and go, you know what? I think doing some drugs would be great. Yes, let's get high today. No, he woke up, and addiction is a mental health condition, and it's becoming more widely known that that's true, that's the case. Because for a long time it was exactly that. You are choosing to be addicted. You are choosing to do drugs. You're choosing to drink alcohol to a very extreme extent. And so in the book, I do go through what the actual DSM-5 outlines as the diagnostical criteria for an addiction, because it is actually a diagnosable condition. And that means that there's treatment that can also help. But unless you're willing to stand up and say, "I need help," you're not going to get it. And that can be very difficult.
And there's a great big stigma about standing up and saying, "I need help," and because it changes your brain chemistry. I've been told.
That's what I've heard. That's what I've read. And it's so the longer you do it, the harder it comes back from it. And you're right. Like you were talking about the guest that you had, having lost his family, lost this and that. They lose relationships, they lose jobs, they lose homes. And that's why when I wrote this book, I really wrote it speaking to the families. It's not to say somebody with an addiction can't read it, but it's really written to the families to try and help them understand, first off, it's okay if they're not talking to this person every day, because you still have to protect your own mental health and your own emotional well-being as well. But also as a way to kind of understand that other person so you can decide how much support you can provide to them. So for my brother, a long time, I tried to help him by, I would sometimes drop off craft dinner to his house. I told him, I would say, hey, I will meet you somewhere, but you are not coming to my house, right? Like, so there's boundaries that you have to set. And as time went on, the boundaries got more strict. Like they got to the point of, I am not seeing you until you're clean and sober, because it was just when I would see him and he would ask me a question, for instance, hey, can I have $10? And the answer would be no, because I knew what he was going to use it for. And all of a sudden it would, you are such a right? Because, and a lot of people with addictions are this way. They are very sweet to get what they want, but as soon as they don't get what they want, they'll drop every word they know at you, because they are not getting what they need to get their fix. And withdrawal is painful, like you said. Like, so there's a lot of components to it, and it can be very difficult being a family member of somebody with an addiction to try and, you know, say, I still love you, I still care about you, but the person with the addiction, all they care about at that moment is getting the next fix.
And they don't. Well, let me ask you, do they recognize that you still love them, or is he so far in depth into what he's doing that he just poo-poos it, unless you got $10?
Yeah. I think it got to the point that it was kind of like he poo-pooed it, because I was very, very strict on I was not going to communicate with you if you were going to call me those names. The last conversation I actually had with him, it was about 3 weeks before he died. He was at my aunt's house, and so we were on Zoom. And he was, at first we were just sort of talking, and it was really hard to have a conversation with him, because it's, how do you have a conversation? Hey, how are you? What's new? Well, not much new in his life. And then for me to tell him what's new in my life, it's almost felt like I'm saying, hey, I'm so much better than you.
No, you're not.
It's what it felt like.
Yeah. What? So when he finally overdosed, was it because he had introduced something new, like fentanyl, or it got snuck into his stuff? Did they ever find out exactly what happened there?
I don't think so. They never told us anything different. I think it was more just there's another drug addict gone. Sweet. Wash our hands clean. So no, they never did tell us. I'm not sure exactly what happened. When I got the phone call, it was his ex-girlfriend, and they were still friends. She actually had messaged me on Facebook first to call her. So I called her, and she was just like, I'm so sorry, Brandon's gone. I was like, what? So she gave me the number of the other person that was on scene with his body and the police and everything. And she kind of explained to me what happened and said, I tried to give her the naloxone. So naloxone has these counteractive things that help when there is a certain type of drug overdose. I put the definition in the book as well. And so basically naloxone, it's supposed to revive somebody that's having drug overdose, and it just didn't work for him that time.
Now, was that the one that uses a nasal spray?
It might. I know it does also use a needle.
Yeah, they've got a new one out now that's down here.
Okay.
That is a nasal spray.
Okay.
And it is, I've had a couple. I drove a bus for a long time, and I had a couple of people OD on the bus.
Oh, okay.
And so the medic one came, and they determined that he was indeed on his way, out.
Yeah.
And so they gave him, forget the name of it, but it was actually a nose spray, but you can't use it. It fixes the problem short term, but it
Yes.
wears off and it doesn't help long term.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like a an EpiPen almost, right? When you're having a severe allergic reaction, it helps you make it to an emergency room, but you still need medical attention.
It was the damnedest thing I ever saw, because this man was lying on my bus. I was driving a 60-foot bus. He was lying there. He had tubes in him because they were checking him and stuff. And the medic one came, and we had been trying for 30 minutes to wake him up.
Oh, wow.
The policeman was actually putting his finger in his eye, trying to, cause enough discomfort to wake him up, and nothing.
Oh my goodness.
Nothing was working. And
Ow.
so they administered Narcan, is what they call it.
Oh, yes. Okay.
And they administered Narcan, and he popped up and was sitting up, and it was like nothing was wrong. And I said, wow, that stuff's a miracle. And the fireman said, not really. He'll be comatose in about 20 minutes. So we have to get him to the hospital now.
Yeah.
And stuff. So, but it's one of those things, drug addiction, and correct me if I'm wrong, but drug addiction is one of those things where in the beginning, it's a great deal of fun. It makes them feel super and happy and whatever it is. But then over time, the table kind of flips.
Yeah.
It's no longer necessarily fun. It's now a necessity.
Exactly. I've never, because of seeing what happened with Brandon, I never have done drugs, but from all of the different interviews I've done on my show, yeah, that's pretty much it. They start because it's helping them deal with, say, their anxiety. And I think that's part of what was Brandon's issue, was he needed to deal with anxiety and some trauma that happened. And so they use that to feel better, and it works. But in order to keep it working, they have to use more and more and more. And then eventually it's that the drug is saying, no, you're going to use me now. I don't care if you think you need me, you're going to need me.
Whether you want to or not.
Exactly.
And by the way, there's a guy sitting in a car someplace that just heard you say on your show, and he wants me to ask you, your show, tell us about your show.
Sure. So I have a podcast and a YouTube channel. It's called the Write or Die Show. So write like you're writing something, WRITE. Write or Die Show. I interview other authors and we talk about their personal mental health journeys, much like we're doing now, to try and just bring awareness, get people to learn some new coping strategies, and hopefully just bring some awareness and help even just one person.
At the end of the day, that's all we can do.
Yeah.
This is a very, people think that this is a public thing. It's a very personal thing.
Exactly.
Because it's you and I sitting here having a conversation, and there are other people in the Seattle market that are listening to this conversation, and they're thinking, well, they're on the radio and that. No, this is just a conversation between you and I that hopefully somebody will get the benefit of. Because we've talked about some great things today. We've talked about writing. We've talked about kickboxing. We've talked about autism. We've talked about drug addiction. And you're a wonderful guest to have. And by the way, since I do a podcast too, and I know yours is terrific, is mine okay?
Yeah, I like yours. It's great.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I always fish for compliments,
Everyone should subscribe to both of us.
I agree. So if they want to subscribe to you, how do they get that done?
So if you prefer to watch it on YouTube, then you can do that. Write or Die Show, hit subscribe. Or if you prefer podcasts, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, whatever one you listen to it on.
Say it slower.
Sorry, I talk fast. So on YouTube, you can find it and you'll see the videos. And I always have very cool makeup on. And then I know, I see it right now. And then if you prefer to just listen through a podcast version, you can listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, whatever platform it is that you prefer to listen to. It's on all of them.
And how did you get started doing that?
So I loved podcasts. I loved listening to them. I liked being guests on them. And I was like, I could do this. I love talking. And when I was little, I was going to be a famous actor. So I was like, well, having my own talk show is kind of the same thing.
Well, you're not old yet. You're not dead yet. So that you never know. That could happen yet.
True, but according to my kid, I'm ancient, and
Yeah.
it doesn't take much for them. And so I was like, okay, what am I going to make the show about? And a bunch of different ideas went through my head. And then somebody said, and I knew I wanted something about mental health. I knew that. And somebody said to me, well, you're an author. Why don't you just talk to other authors? I'm like, oh, you're a genius.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And you've niched down into a real fairly narrow niche, but it's broad at the same time.
Exactly. So I talk to authors, but it's not just for authors to listen to, because it's, we're just talking about mental health. And what I do on the YouTube one anyways, is I make playlists. So if you're like, hey, just want to listen to the depression episodes, you can look, and all the depression episodes are all together. The bipolar are all together, right? So it's kind of neat that way.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you do a great job. And thank you for the work that you're doing. And by the way, this will be on positivetalkradio.net as well as Positive Talk Radio, the YouTube channel. We have over 60,000 views on YouTube, just so there. So,
well, I'm working on it. Okay. I'm still fresh.
we're all doing it. And it's great. It's great fun. And we are, sadly, because this is actual real radio in downtown Seattle. And this is KKNW 1150 AM. We're going to run out of time in approximately 3.5 minutes. So I want to make sure that I give you enough time to be able to tell our audience anything that's on your heart that you would like them to know.
Ooh, what do I want them to know? Follow me everywhere. Well, definitely do that.
Not everywhere. Not everywhere.
Okay, not like in a creepy stalker way, but like social media way.
Exactly.
And buy all my books. Just if you are feeling, because we've talked so much about autism, about mental health, if you are feeling that something is a little off, don't just be like, oh, okay, that's just me. That's just normal. That's my normal. It might be your normal, but you might also need some help. So reach out, talk to professionals. If it is something around the autism thing, look for somebody who actually knows about autism, not just a general practitioner. They're a good starting point, but you want that end game. And I always like to say on my show about mental health, I always close up with saying, let's speak openly and honestly about all these topics. So that's what I want to say. And then, yeah, for sure, follow me on Facebook. I'm RB Writing. On Instagram, I just changed my Instagram name. Shoot, I don't have it memorized yet. I think it's just Randi-Lee Bowslaugh now. And TikTok, I'm there as well. Randi-Lee Bowslaugh.
And good for you. I'm glad that you're out there, because you genuinely are helping people. And that's really cool that you do that. By the way, her name again is Randi-Lee Bowslaugh, and you can go to rbwriting.ca. She's a friend of ours from Canada up there.
You can't tell though, because I live so close to the border that I don't talk to Canadian.
Does that even sound remotely like a Canadian, or does it sound like I'm being stupid?
A little bit of both. I think if you go like super northeast from me, you might find that kind of talk.
Well, there used to be a show called Bob and Ted or something like that.
Yeah. They hardcore make fun of everything Canadian. Yeah. But
I have to tell you, I've talked to a lot of Canadians, and you guys are a little bit more enlightened than we are down here in a lot of cases. So I really appreciate you guys for what you do, and it's awfully fun to have you here. And by the way, again, go to her website and you can buy her book. She's got the third's coming out in May. Is that right?
Yeah, May. So you can pre-order right now, so that as soon as it comes out, you'll get it.
And that is May what when it comes out?
May 20th.
Will you come back before then?
Totally.
Oh, very nice. See, ladies and gentlemen, she'll come back and see me. So there.
I like you. We can be friends.
We can be friends. And you're a fabulous guest, and it's great fun to have you here. We are going to be back here at noon on Friday, and we don't know what we're going to talk about at noon on Friday, because the guest that we had scheduled, Sisters J, isn't going to be able to make it. But we'll figure out something for you. So On behalf of Randi-Lee Bowslaugh, thank you very much for being part of Positive Talk Radio here on Wednesday on KKNW 1150 AM. And by the way, be kind to one another because each other's all we've got.